What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the crew 2, and in this video I do want to take a look at the Fender Charcoal. This car was rewarded last summit for completing that and getting platinum, so I would say it's one of those odd vehicles you really do not see all that often. Like, when was the last time we actually saw a brand new Demolition Derby vehicle? I would say this is for good reasoning. Like, how many people actually use the Demolition Derby cars, to be honest? I mean, I literally never touch these unless I absolutely have to in like summits and all that, so I really do not see the point of actually using one of these. So I would say many players probably didn't get the Fender Charcoal. I really do not blame many of you guys on that for not wanting to go after one of the Demolition Derby vehicles, because there's really no point of actually having one of these vehicles unless you need one for a summit, which I would say most players are running like the Frontera or even the Charger or something like that. But compared to some of the other summit vehicles in the game, surprisingly you can actually change stuff on the Fender, which is definitely kind of cool. I would like to see this on more Summit vehicles in the future. For me, though, I will make this car blue because that does look pretty sweet on there. And then when it comes to visual parts, though, all you can actually change is the rims, so there's really not too much you can do to the vehicle, but at least it's giving you some type of option to change something on the car. I really do hope they continue to do that. I do understand many of the vehicles that normally come out in like motor passes and or summits are supposed to be like special edition type of vehicles, but it would still be awesome to be able to change some of the stuff on these cars. I think that would be great, and being able to change something on the fender here is definitely a pretty nice change. But regardless, guys, the overall detail of this car is probably exactly what you would expect. It's not really the greatest looking car out there, but then again, this is a Demolition Derby vehicle, so I'm not expecting it to look super nice. But some of the other Demolition Derby cars do have some type of detail like that to them, like the Frontera, even the Charger and or the Bulk, like that truck there. Those do look pretty sweet. So I would say this car is definitely going to be unique in an aspect of not looking like everything else. But now, guys, let's go do an outside look of the Fender Charcoal right now, because I do want to take a closer look at this vehicle. I will also do a test drive with it to see how it actually drives, for that matter. Now, I normally do top speed tests with many of the vehicles I test out, but to be honest, I feel like many of the Demolition Derby cars are not really focused on top speed. Most of them do like 140 to like 143, if that, even with Nitro Chemist, so these cars are definitely not made for top speed. And now moving over to the outside look of the Fender Charcoal. So I do have to admit, guys, even though this car definitely does look a lot different than the other ones, I do have to admit the detail of this thing is pretty awesome for the most part. I mean, I can tell the car is designed differently. I mean, this car is basically made to crash into other ones unless you were to do the races, which is honestly what I normally use the Demolition Derby cars for. And if I had to guess, I would say most players are probably not huge fans of the actual Demolition Derbies. The main reason why I say that is I feel like many of them are kind of tied to RNG in a way. But and now moving right over to the interior view of the Fender Charcoal, I would say this is probably going to look exactly as you would expect it to. There's probably not going to be a ton of detail in one of these vehicles, but at least there's 49 different buttons on it. I think it would be kind of funny to start one of these up, because my goodness, you probably have to flip most of those up to do so. Obviously the gauge is there for like the RPM and then the odometer. Then we have the emergency button and a fire button. And then for some odd reason, when I looked at that E, I instantly thought of Fast and Furious when he was like, ejecto Ceto, cuz. But regardless, though, I would say this car is pretty dang sweet, even though it's definitely going to be on the weird side. Now, I do want to take the vehicle on a quick test drive to really see how this thing might perform, which, to be honest, it's not going to be all that great, which is kind of what I was expecting. I mean, it is like a Demolition Derby car. It's not like a street car, so I was not expecting it to be like super fast or grip really well, which would make sense. I would say most people are probably not going to use these. My goodness, I see so many donkeys over here, it's kind of weird. But regardless, guys, I would say this might be one of those vehicles that many players are going to add to their collection. And the main reason for that is we do not have a lot of Demolition Derby cars in the game in general, so at least we are going to have another one, at least in that aspect. Many people are probably not going to use this vehicle even when summits come out, because, well, even after driving the car a little bit, guys, which I will get more into that here in a second in one of the races, I would say the Fender Frontera is still going to remain my favorite, and I know the Charger is also pretty dang good as well, so I don't think a lot of players are going to pick this over one of those when those cars are definitely going to be better. So now jumping right into one of the Demolition Derby car races. Now I'm not gonna lie, I would prefer to do one of the races over the actual Demolition Derbies. I don't know why guys, but I just do not enjoy doing them all that much. But regardless, I would say this is probably one of those cars that might unfortunately basically just fall under a bus, I guess so to speak. Like, I feel like it's going to collect dust for many players because I don't really find the car to be all that great. Now, the car isn't awful in any way, I just don't think a lot of players are going to pick like this over something like the Fender Frontera, which to this day is still my favorite Demolition Derby vehicle. I use that thing on basically everything, and my goodness, I cannot drive right now. But I basically use that vehicle on everything like races, actual Demolition Derbies, and basically everything. I find that car to literally be that good. I would say every car is going to have their flaws in some way, but some definitely have more flaws than others, my goodness. And what are y'all doing? Can I just fly by you? By the way, guys, big tip on this race, by the way, the big figure eight one. If you're wondering how to get around the track a little bit faster, you want to ride the wall a little bit more over here and then kind of come down by the end. You can get like a burst of speed that way. Unfortunately, I can't really drive at the moment, so I'm having issues. Also, the build on this car is going to be pretty dang good that I have on it. I did adjust it a couple of times, and my goodness, I was struggling a bit with it when I first put the settings on it. I was like, okay, the car's not turning enough. It felt kind of twitchy. I wasn't really feeling it all that much. Then I tweaked it, and it's definitely going to be a lot better now. My goodness, that dude went flying. What in the world? But I would say this car is overall going to be one of those vehicles many players are just not going to choose. Now, I wouldn't say this car is going to be the worst Demolition Derby car in the game, but I think we can all agree it's not going to be the most picked one either. I mean, this is one of those classes I would say might be one of the least used classes in the game besides like Jet Sprint or something like that. I would say many players are probably going to agree that there is really not a reason to run the Fender Charcoal or any of the Demolition Derby cars unless they are out in a summit. I mean, why would you actually want to drive a car that can get damaged pretty easily? Plus, it's not going to handle all that great, and it's obviously not going to be that fast either. So I would say that's definitely going to be an issue, but at least we will have a new car for the collection purposes of the game, I guess, because we really do not have a lot of the Demolition Derby cars in general. But that's probably for good reasoning, because most people probably don't run these cars anyway. But let me know what you guys think about this thing in the comments below, and here are the settings I'm currently running on this vehicle.